Just to bring everybody sort of into the context of where we're siting the fire headquarters, it's sort of in a more commercial section of town. You've got the parking shop, a couple of car dealerships, Jiffy Lube, some chain hotels, and the Dunkin' Donuts as well. So it's pretty broad swath of different architectural styles here, also differing from your municipal buildings within town. But it's important to consider when you're looking at the design of a building within its context to understand those that surround us and our neighbors, to make sure that there's harmony with the architecture in the design. So first, we're going to jump right into where we stand currently with the design, and I want to preface this by saying this is a hypothetical design. This is something that we worked with the fire department and the building committee on over the early winter of last year, and this is in no means what the building is going to ultimately look like, but we will be seeking feedback from you as we jump into the community charrette portion of this. So this is one idea. This may not be the idea that gets ultimately constructed, so I want to make sure that we're all looking through it with that lens. So this is again the proposed site. I'm going to take the mic off so I can walk around a little bit. So this portion of the site right here is essentially where the Chuck Steakhouse used to be. This is Route 20 right here in Prospect Street that runs north to south across the site. Off to the north is where the Dunkin' Donuts is, and then the Veterans Memorial Park is just off to the top here. What we're doing is trying to create a fire station that allows response to both sections of the main drags here, so that they have better response times throughout the community. So we're bringing our fire apparatus out onto Prospect Street, and then that way they can go left or right, and gives them better access to the rest of the community when they're responding to a fire. The site would be predominantly accessed off of Route 20 for the public. You'd be coming in to the public parking spaces that are here on the front of the building facing Route 20, and then exiting back out. Most of the staff entry and staff parking is going to be off to the rear of the site. The apparatus bays are double-sided, so there's overhead doors on either side, so they can respond in both directions or bring the vehicles in and come right into the station, so that they're not creating a lot of congestion out into the roadways, and are able to ingress and egress off the site safely and effectively. In addition to this, we're also providing some public parking spaces as part of the Veterans Memorial Park right now. There are no public parking spaces associated with that, so we felt it appropriate to give some parking spaces there. And then we're also creating a firefighters memorial for fallen firefighters and things like that at the front of the building. That'll be connected by sidewalks to the Veterans Memorial, and creating more of a common connection between the two as well. We're also preserving a large swath of the site here, just behind the fire station. This is proposed additional municipal use in the future, so we're trying to maximize the usability of the site and preserving as much as possible. It's no surprise that the town of Auburn is fairly land poor when it comes to the center part of the town. So we want to be as economical and as efficient with our layout as we can to preserve as much available space for any future building needs that may need to occur here. So we are identifying that future expansion here and working that into the design. A couple of other things to note is we do have, as we get into the floor plan, some town staff amenities like a gym that's going to be part of the fire station. That's sited off of these parking spaces here, so that other municipal employees would be able to access that off hours or other parts of the day, and not get in the way of firefighter operations. So we're trying to provide assets to the rest of the town staff that may not be available elsewhere within this building itself. These are the floor plans that we've worked out with the fire department. It's a 2-story building. It's a little hard to see, so I'm going to try to walk you through it. But essentially, the building is comprised of several main zones. One being the public entry and the staff entry, so this is our main lobby space. The second being sort of training and fitness, which is over on the left side. On the right side of the plan, on the ground level, is our administrative spaces. To the north of the plan is our apparatus bays. And on the second floor is our living quarters for the firefighters. So as you come in off of the main vestibule from the public parking that was right off of Route 20, you'll come into a lobby. That'll also bring you into the training room. This is a training room used for classroom activities and trainings for the fire department. It's also used by other municipal agencies within the town, and can also be used by the public as well. So this is really an asset that the entire community will be able to take advantage of. Just above that is our fitness room that's located off the back of the building, again, being available to other municipal employees. It's a modest-sized fitness room, but is a great amenity to the fire department in the town as well. To the right side of the plan, working back off of the vestibule, as you first come into the vestibule, there'll be a door to the right. This is into basically a triage space, so that if you're having a medical emergency in the town and you come into the fire station, you'll have a small area where you can actually go in and seek advanced medical treatment right here within the fire station, be stabilized, and then receive a trip from an ambulance to a local hospital. So it's a great asset for the community to have something like that for medical emergencies. There's also an administrative and work area here. So this is where the fire department admins would be, with a window right into the lobby, so that anybody from the public coming in needs directions on where to go or needs to seek service, they'd be able to do that at that window. And then we've got a series of offices, the EMS coordinator, the training officer, the fire prevention office, chief, the deputy chief, all their offices would be here right off of the lobby as well. They have a conference room, and then some other miscellaneous office space. The apparatus space to the north here, this is where they store all their firefighting vehicles and equipment. So there's a number of engines and ladder trucks and things like that depicted here that fit within the bays. Again, they're double deep so that they can come in or out from either side of the bays. Accompanying these are some of their support spaces that firefighters need to have. One of the most important things that we've learned over the past 25 years, especially since 9/11, is the huge health impacts that a poorly designed fire station has on the firefighters as they come back from calls. There's carcinogens on their gear, smoke, soot, things like that. And so it's really critical that not only are we separating those dirty spaces from the clean side of the building, but giving them a pathway of decontamination as they go to those clean sides of the building as well. So when they're responding to a call, they'll come into the bays. There's a large decontamination area here that allows them to decontaminate their bodies, their gear, and get them clean and then stored properly so that they're not bringing those carcinogens into the rest of the building. This includes showers, gear extractors, a number of different things. We've also provided some duty lockers in here as well, so that when they're coming in off a call and are decontaminating their gear, that they also have a change of clean clothes here in the bays that they can jump into and then move to the clean side of the building. We also have turnout gear lockers, which is where their gear would be stored after it's been cleaned. This is a requirement by NFPA that they have direct access to transition zones off of their gear spaces and decontamination spaces. And then we also have a radio room here that's built into a transition zone that has a small break space. This is used by mutual aid departments that are coming in and operating out of this facility as well. That way they're not able to access the entire building, but they do have an area that has a break room and a place to sit while they're waiting for a call. In addition to that, we've got several storage and mechanic spaces up to the north, and then a mechanics bay just above that for servicing of all their firefighting equipment. That has a mezzanine above it that has storage and things like that, so there's ample amounts of storage in this facility, which is something that's severely lacking in the current 2 fire stations in town.
Matt, could you just illustrate where the mezzanine extent is?
Yep. So up on this floor plan here, this would dictate where the mezzanine is. It's just above these spaces here. So it's really inexpensive, low-cost space. We've already got rooms underneath it. We put a slab on top, and you get all that bonus square footage. On the second floor, this is predominantly the firefighters' living quarters. So there's a series of bunks around the perimeter of the building here. There's several restroom facilities, so these are bathrooms with showers in them. There are non-gendered options, and there are also gendered options as well, so that the fire department can accommodate differing gender ratios as the fire department staff changes over time. We also have a day room, dining room, and a kitchen. So a lot of times the fire department is there for long hours. They're on 24-hour shifts, so they need a place to cook, eat meals, and things like that, and relax in some downtime or after a rather challenging call. And then off to the back, we've got some mechanical and electrical space. We've got some additional storage and our fire pole down to the apparatus floor.
And one more, Matt, for you is to comment on the iterations that we've gone through in refining the program with the fire department.
Yeah, so these floor plans here are actually generated from the past 7 or 8 years of working with the fire department. We've generated a program with them initially in 2017, which was a space needs assessment. We have had many, many iterations with the fire department over time, not just to refine the actual layout of the spaces, but right-sizing it to make sure that we're not building too much now and not overburdening the community with an overly excessive fire station. So the program of this has been a lot larger, and we've scaled it back over time as the departments work through some of those programmatic issues and right-size their staffing so that we're really making sure we're delivering what the town needs, not what the fire department necessarily only wants. So really making sure we're right-sizing this has been really important throughout the process. So here's a couple of images of what this could look like. This is along Prospect Street, looking at the apparatus bays. So these are those bays where the fire department would be responding out of. This is sort of the front of the building here with the public entry, and then the administrative offices down below, bunk rooms to the top. Predominantly, it's a brick building, so a majority of what you're seeing here is a red brick. We do have some dark gray brick highlighting some of the secondary spaces, and then some metal panel up above. So predominantly brick metal panel is what we're looking at currently with this design. This is a view just coming around the corner. So off to the far left of the screen, that would be your public entry. Some of the soffits and roof overhangs and things like that we're actually doing with a composite wood look soffit material, so it sort of warms it up a little bit. All that brick and stone and metal, it's nice to get a little bit of some wood texture in there, so it really warms up the palette. This is just coming around the corner a little bit further. So off to the left, this is where your training room is, and again, right in the middle of the building is your public entry. And then off to the back, this is the staff entry. This is off to the back of the building. These are the apparatus bay doors that are here, training room, and the fitness room over here as well. So just a quick look at the anticipated project schedule. Where this project has been recently, so in 2023 at town meeting, it was approved to purchase the property of the former Chuck site for use of the town. That use has been designated for the fire headquarters building. Since then, we're in a pre-design phase, so gathering public input from you folks, as well as putting together some of the conceptual designs and really getting an understanding of the true scope of this project. Following town meeting, should we have a favorable vote and the community elects to move forward with this project, this is what the design phases would look like moving forward. We'd anticipate about 10 months of design time from town meeting to when we bid this project to general contractors. That consists of 3 phases: schematic design, design development, and construction document development. Each of those are between 2 to 4 months in duration, and each one terminates with an estimate that is going to be run by both us as well as your owner's project manager independently. And then we're going to bring those 2 estimates together and reconcile them to make sure that we're seeing eye to eye, our budgets are in alignment, and that way when we go to bid, we have the highest level of confidence that the bid numbers are going to be at or below the numbers that we're projecting for the total project budget. That'll culminate in with an anticipated end date sometime in spring of 2026. From there, we're going to bid the project, and there's a couple of durations on the bid phase depending on how we procure this. You can do it 2 ways in Massachusetts. One under Mass General Law, Chapter 149 as a general contractor hard bid, or the second under Mass General Law, Chapter 149A as a construction manager at risk. So those 2 procurement processes occur at different times, but this is forecasting as a general contractor bid phase under Chapter 149. From there, we're anticipating approximately an 18-month construction schedule. So we would anticipate the fire department moving in sometime at the end of December of 2027. And sometime in the middle of that process, we'd also be doing a FF&E procurement, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. This is most of the furniture and loose items that occur in the building. So that happens concurrently with the construction phase. And again, we would anticipate fire department occupancy in 2027. So now the charrette and the community feedback portion of this. So for those that are listening in and watching remotely online or through local cable access, I'm going to flip to this slide, and here's a link to a SurveyMonkey. You can either type in the link above, or you can use the QR code to get to the remote link. There are 3 slides that I'll flip through in a second, and we'd appreciate any feedback that you may have on each of those slides. For those of you that are in the audience, there's boards scattered about the room. There's 3 sets of 3 boards. They each have the same thing on them. At each set of boards, you'll also find a stack of Post-it notes and some pens. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip those boards around so you can see what the content is, and I'll bring them up on the screen here as well. And really, what you see on the screen is post your thoughts there. So really write down what you like, what you don't like, something else you'd like to see, really what it means to you to have a fire station in this town, what it should look like, how it should feel, and what's your true opinion on it. And be honest, because this feedback is going to directly influence the way this building looks and is designed going forward. So we really appreciate your feedback on this. We're going to take about 20 minutes for this exercise, so everybody can sort of get up and move around the room and add as many notes as you want. And then we're going to come back. We're going to open it up to the folks that are in the room here for additional comment and feedback and any other questions you may have beyond that. And there was one question here. If you could, sir, there's a mic in the middle of the room, if you wouldn't mind.
We can wait till after for the feedback.
Okay.
I have numerous questions.
Sure.
You want a couple now, or do you want to wait?
Let's wait till the end and get all the feedback at the same time. I will preface it because I'm sure there's some burning questions about project budget and cost and things like that. We're not in a position today to talk directly about cost or what this thing is going to be in terms of a tax impact to the community. That's going to be worked out over the next couple of weeks. And certainly your feedback on the design could play in have an impact on that as well. So I do want to, we won't be talking about cost today. We're speaking strictly about the design. So the 3 boards we're going to be looking at, one, what does, in your opinion, a fire station in the town of Auburn look like to you? And again, remember back to those slides I had about municipal building context and the local context of the site around where the fire station is going to be located. We do have a couple of examples of some recent fire stations within a 1-hour drive of Auburn up on the screen here, some in Massachusetts, some in Connecticut. So don't let that guide you, but let that inspire you or give you something to think about. The second slide is about the site design. So any thoughts, feedback, or comments you might have on the site plan, what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see, things you didn't hear tonight that you might want to hear from in the future. And then again, on the building design itself, what you like, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see, materials, roofs, whatever it may be. Feel free to give us your true and honest feedback. It's valued and very important. So,
Danny Largis, I'm a precinct member of 4. We're sending this to town meeting for a vote, but yet we don't have a cost on it? Again, aren't we putting?
Cost when it goes to vote.
We will have a cost to it, and I thought
It
this.
has to have a cost when we go.
Well, that's what I was assuming. So the public is not voting on this, just the town meeting is? This isn't going to a ballot question?
The ballot will have to be there to approve the debt exclusion. So town meeting comes first because it's
Correct.
scheduled. They will have to approve the budget contingent on the funding approval of the ballot initiative. The ballot initiative comes right after that, and that will be the debt exclusion vote. So without both votes, it doesn't go forward.
So the town meeting's gonna vote to put it to the ballot?
Yeah, like the schools, right? Just like the 2 schools. It's contingent on the outcome of the election.
Okay, all right, thank you.
all right. with that, I'll invite any of you to get up and put your thoughts on any of these boards, and then we'll come back, and if anybody has anything that they want to discuss further or expand on any of your comments, please feel free. And for those online, we'll be back at 1:15 to discuss any further comments.
You were saying composite? All steel studs, no wood.
Yeah, so the socket material we're talking about, they make it, looks just like wood, it's plastic. Yeah, all these
Now, what kind of roofs are you looking at?
So the front of the building, it's a standing cement roof.
All right, so that's gonna be a metal roof.
Yep, and then the flat roofs, there's two flat roofs.
Would it be like a PVC, like a Santa roof?
Yep.
Okay, so we're doing good. Now, when you're talking about that room, that's gonna be the community lounge, not the training room, but the radio room?
Yeah.
You know, with the 911, yeah, communicate with 911 goes, because I know they were talking about getting all the towns here, you know.
No, it won't be that,
Right, but I always like to believe down the road as well, that they want to pull the communication, the 911 call center out of the police station and put it in the fire station, because I think that's the place for it to be. And it's gonna be kind of an independent.
So we this was an accident 146. So the idea was, so we had six, if you're looking at the plan, right above the training room, they're low roof. And that area
That's what I was like to believe, because they don't go to the super secret meetings.
And what happened was, we contract coordinating with all their offices, they didn't want to
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, see, that's why I thought they were gonna pull it out on the police department and make it. The fire department had like an annex to it, so it would be Right, so that means someday they're gonna sign on, and we're gonna have to sell our money for the ticket. All right, so it wouldn't be just Auburn showing up. So all of a sudden, if Leicester or Oxford decide to sign on, they're gonna kick in. All right. Now, is there just, I know there's nothing etched. So roughly, I guess, what do you think this whole project started from? 50 million, 60 million.
Well, the reason why we got ready yet is we so when we get those up, we have a good handle.
And this would all have to be bank finance.
Some of these are very, whatever the car, you cut our nose off, just like that.
It's so illegal, it's so unfavorable.
We're trying to minimize,
You know, yeah, I know my taxes are gonna go up, but I don't, a lot of them already have.
that's a big number for the budget. They don't do
Well, police station was a joke for me. It was just, it had stupid people. I live right up the street from the police station. They were building here. That's what I was, you know, my fault, it should have been, it was right on Route 12, where initially was, where Staples is.
someone did,
Enhance that, easier access, better location, and they could have put a bigger building in there.
really.
What do you think I learned about living in Auburn? What, I can't, I got no other way to put it. All right, one of them. Appreciate it.
But there's a few others. You know, the first is these trucks have he's the seller. But it was in the site of shit. I remember some of it was something. It was a rated double. Actually, it's on a corner. You drive. There's another one. Listen, if you go into like, you see across from like town hall, it looks like a one-story concession, two-story. Go up. Take a right. So if you were coming down, you would take the 40 to go like 5 doors. You take a so we did that and shit like all the shot. How was that? I did for 20-something years because all the new shit was on first thing against you class. It's awesome. That was great. That was great. Right next to town. Only one side. Yeah, we we do a second set, but they have that nail sign. It's on the nail sign. It's spot. But it was, no, it's a smart thing. I know that's all. Where you pay.
The chief
We're just about at quarter after. I'll just give everybody just a minute or two to wrap up here, so we'll give 2 more minutes.
Great comment.
The flat roof, they were just asking about the pitch of it for solar in the future. Is it pitched in the right direction? Is it only solar panels that would be different? Right. Exactly. Feels a lot of those.
A lot of good feedback and conversation now.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to open it up to see if anybody wants to just come up and address it. But then if nobody's getting up, then I think throw it over to you. Yeah. Yeah, the survey will be up for another week. Tell me the link is working.
Huh?
Tell me the link is working now.
I don't know, I don't think I want to do this stuff. I got a couple of years on.
It works, Matt.
Excellent.
This one, this is where they put the kids today, that's something.
All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Appreciate everybody's time, providing feedback on the boards that we have in the room here. I think that was a fun exercise. There's a lot of good conversation that came out of that thus far. For those of you remotely attending, hope you were able to take advantage of the survey, and again, that's going to remain available for the next week. So if you didn't get a chance to tonight or would like to share this with anybody else, please feel free to do so. As much feedback and comments as we can get, the better for this project as well. So I think what we'll do now is we'll open it up to anybody that wants to share any of the comments that they put on any of the boards, wants to expand on them a little bit, ask some questions. Feel free to come up to the mic in the middle of the room here and let us know your thoughts, and hopefully if there's any questions, we can answer them, and if it's general feedback, I'm happy to receive it and let you expand on some of your initial thoughts. So if anybody would like to step up, please feel free to do so now. If nobody does, Jeff is going to go and start taking Post-it notes off the boards and reading them to the...
When will we see the final drawings?
The final drawings for town meeting?
Well, when will we see the station's final drawings? Are we gonna, like, see them 10 minutes before a town meeting?
So any drawings that are updated, they will be provided to the building committee and will be available at any public building committee meeting forthcoming between now and town meeting. Also, any documents that are shared with the committee that are provided between now and town meeting will also be posted on the project webpage.
They're all conceptual.
Which we have right here. Everything's conceptual, yeah.
It will be up until after town meeting.
Correct.
Approval before drawings.
Yep, and then throughout the process between, should we have a favorable vote at town meeting through the bid documents as well, those can also be shared through the project website as well. So every step of the way, we're going to be as transparent as we possibly can be, and happy to take any feedback or comments whenever any of those design documents are ready and available.
So the drawing this evening, you have part of the building tilted. Why not make a straight face on it?
That's a great question. Actually, I was just talking to another individual about that very thing. So right now, the building is addressing both Route 20 and Prospect Street, so it's sort of orthogonal to both of those roads. The reason ultimately of why that is done for that angle, because one, the roads aren't 90 degrees to each other. But what happens is if we were to make the apparatus bays perpendicular to Route 20 so that they're on a 90-degree angle with the rest of the building, it pushes that portion of the building back into the site quite a bit at the top corner as it rotates around, and we end up losing a considerable amount of parking spaces as a result of that. So in order to make the site as compact and as efficient as possible, that angle came into play. It doesn't really have an impact on cost for the actual building construction itself. I can pull up that site plan to demonstrate that.
There you go, yep.
Doesn't really have an impact on cost because those are actually two different structural systems, the two different portions of the building, different roof heights, things like that. It's simply just the way those two elements are organized on the site to maximize the efficiency of circulation and parking.
Okay, now,
Yeah, so that's where the building is orthogonal to Route 20.
Yeah, if we kicked it up, then you would open up green space as opposed to preserving parking space.
Right. And conversely, the same thing with the bays up on the north, so.
okay, so the roof on the administrative building, why not pitch that towards the south instead of the north so we can do a possibility of solar panels on that roof at a later date? Right now, it's pitched to the north towards Dunkin' Donuts.
That's possible. I don't have any feedback on it other than that. It's certainly a possibility.
When I was anticipating coming here this evening, I thought the buildings would be, the apparatus floor would be larger And I just said to the chief, why not model it after Auburn Street, extend it 2 more bays, double-sided, so then you'd have 11 bays for the apparatus, 1 for the maintenance, and then put all the living quarters, which would give the firefighters more living quarters at the top. And if you have to narrow down the administration part of the building and go 2 to 3 floors if you absolutely need it. One of the urgent care room, or whatever you called it, is this going to be the only fire station with this room? Are there other fire stations within the area?
I don't have other ones off the top of my head, but yes, this is not an uncommon thing to put in a fire station, in a modern fire station.
Uncommon to where, though?
To Massachusetts.
L.A.?
Matt, can I just answer that question?
Sure.
Yeah, there's few fire stations, modern fire stations that are constructed today that don't have some sort of a walk-off room. We do a lot of walk-in traffic, people driving into the fire station, having chest pain, having some type of a medical emergency. And what happens today, whether it's at West Street or Auburn Street, we wind up trying to treat that patient in the lobby, or we open the door and we move them into like the dispatch area and we sit them in a chair right there. What this allows us to do is when someone presents at our building for a medical emergency, we go right into the walk-off room. There's already an ambulance stretcher in that room, and the treatment begins immediately there. Then we can move them. Once the ambulance is pulled around front, we can move them. So this is certainly going to create efficiency on a problem that already exists today. On a weekly basis, someone turns up at our building having a medical emergency that we're dispatched from the station. So this is almost kind of envision it like a small doctor's office. You know, medical equipment is there, the cardiac monitor, so we can begin treatment immediately when somebody comes off the lobby.
Aren't these all the things that are in every single ambulance we have? Why not rush them right into an ambulance?
Because, again, there's protocols that say if someone presents with chest pain in the lobby, we're not walking you to an ambulance. We have to immediately sit you down. You can't exert yourself, and there are protocols that have to be happened immediately as far as patient care. It's not as easy as just, let's walk this way 30 feet to the ambulance. It's actually prohibited by OEMS regulations. So
Okay.
this is the best way to provide effective and the correct care to people when they present at the building with a medical emergency.
So the walk-in room is at the front and the ambulances are at the back?
Right,
Would it
the
be-
ambu- so
could we
the am-
put it closer?
Well, the idea is that when someone walks into the lobby and says, I'm having chest pain, we're immediately moving off into that room. The paramedics will begin treatment, someone will get the ambulance, pull the ambulance out to the front. We're going to be in that room for a good 10 to 15 minutes treating the patient. It's not, you know, the days of just throwing somebody into an ambulance and driving to the hospital, that's not the treatment modality. We'll be treating this patient, cardiac drugs, cardiac monitoring. The treatment is taking place just like in a residential home. We don't pull in, rush into a home, throw you on a stretcher, throw you in the ambulance and drive as fast as we can. This 15 to 20 minutes of actual medicine that is going on in the home before we even transport a patient. So it's not about speed, it's about the effectiveness of the treatment.
Okay. Now, the pictures you have with you at the what's with the glass tower? What do we, in the middle?
So that's an architectural element, essentially, just separating out the two volumes. Like it, love it, hate it.
Well, it's
We can certainly change it, but
cost efficient? I mean, how much expensive is that gonna be to do that instead of,
no
you
more,
know,
no
and
more.
what's the maintenance on something like that gonna be?
It'd be no more maintenance than you would on any other windows within the building, and no more cost than it would be if it was brick. It's similarly priced.
Okay, and the living quarters upstairs, how many firefighters will that house?
I think we're programmed for 13, Chief, which was based on an independent staffing size study that the department had conducted 2 years ago, or 3 years ago.
And the female firefighters will have their own quarters?
Yes, yeah, so there are designated, there's designated facilities specifically for females, and there's also non-gendered facilities as that ratio changes over time that can be designated in the future. So we've built in flexibility as the sex ratio changes over time.
Would you like to come up and ask that question? Yeah. Okay. I'll give you the mic, Russ.
Yeah, we have the female section, we have the male, what's a non-gender section you're talking about building?
It's not specific to a male or female, so either sex could use it.
We're talking signs, right? These are 4 identical.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's men's room, women's room.
Community room,
Yeah, it's
you know,
no difference.
it's,
Same toilets.
because that's not gonna stick for long. And the other thing, I liked what Mr. Lagasse said, but maybe to see if we could get an idea if the slope of the roof, which I'm in favor of a slope roof, it's the best. But if we change the angle and then down the road we can put solar, or maybe get some kind of, during the construction, something for solar, you know, that'll help a lot of things.
Yeah.
That'd be nice to see, you know, you're just taking it going from this way to this way, so I don't see that being any kind of cost issue because it's the same thing.
Yep. No, absolutely. We can maximize all of the roof. So all the other roofing areas, we are compelled by the building code to make sure that it is designed to support solar in the future, and we can also
Right.
make sure that every roof surface is designed such that we can
Correct, so
maximize
just
that.
design it where it'll face the sun and, you know, solar's so big, I can see it happening,
Definitely.
you know? Okay.
Excuse me, Matt. One of the questions that came up while we're talking about this roof specifically, one of the questions that came up was the cost difference between a flat roof versus a roof with this pitch. There's, you know, concern that there may be more cost to a roof like this. Can you just talk a little bit about the roof structure and the cost differences?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly run the numbers to demonstrate what the difference is in cost between this versus a steeper or higher pitched roof. I will say that, you know, there's sort of a mix of both types of roof structures in the area, flat roofs, low sloped roofs, and high pitched roofs as well. So it's not a matter of context. Because of the area that the footprint of this roof structure takes up, if we were to do a traditional gable end roof, it would be quite massive. So we're talking some pretty substantial trusses for that, and it would be substantially taller, 20 feet or so taller than it stands now. So this was a move that was meant to bring the scale of the building down rather than make it much taller. The peak of the roof would almost be twice what it is currently shown if it was a full gable end, and the proportions of it would be so wide that it would look fairly awkward, at least in my opinion. So it's not necessarily a matter of the cost, although there probably would be additional costs associated with a gable roof because of the size of the trusses associated with it.
I think the cheapest point to the materials too, the roof materials and longevity for the metal roofing.
Over like a shingle roof?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the upfront cost of a stainless steel metal roof is going to be a little bit more expensive than if it was an asphalt shingle roof, but your lifespan of that is going to be significantly longer, at least twice as long. So the life cycle cost, the total cost over the life of the building to the community will be less with a metal roof because it's a little more upfront, but your maintenance down the road is going to be substantially less. Plus, this is a 24/7, 365 building. We want to limit as much renovation and rework that goes on over the next 30 to 50 years as possible, because we don't want to sit there and have to tear the building down or take it offline in order to do a repair or general maintenance of the facility. So long-lasting, durable materials are important to prevent any future disruptions to their department's operations.
So I think most of your comments or questions are going to be about cost. We've been at this a long time. What we don't get to see on the presentations is what has been removed or reduced or downsized. I know that, you know, the wants aren't there anymore and the needs are there. I'd love to see presentations showing what's been removed and maybe the true cost over 30 years at these options, because again, we don't want to be narrow-sighted, but everyone is very concerned about the cost. So if we can see this material is going to reduce our maintenance cost over 30 years, a break even is at this point, it'd be silly to go with a cheaper material or something that's going to end up costing us. So it's not, again, we're not going to live in this firehouse, most of us aren't, so we're not going to care about the interruptions to business like that, but we will care when our taxes continue to go up for the maintenance, and, the cost to operate this building should be reduced, or, be able to get some savings there. So any information, and I know you guys don't have all the costs now, but in the future, presentation showing this is what we've already shaved off. We did propose a 3-story building at one point, and now it's reduced. So the building committee is definitely putting their effort in, and I know you guys are part of that. But I'd like to be able to say to the rest of the community, this is what we've heard your concerns. This is what it's coming down to, and when we get to that number, these are all the things that were considered.
Sure, yeah, we can certainly put a summary together over the coming weeks that could be shared on the project website or through the building committee that summarizes some of those adjustments we've made over the past 7 or 8 years. There's been a lot of them, some up, some down, but we can put together a summary of that. Most recently, just in the past week, as an example, the training room was originally sized as a 75-person training room to fit their entire department membership in for full department trainings and larger community events. And in the past week alone, we've reduced the size of that in discussions with the fire department to a 60-person training room, which shaved like 300 or 400 square feet off of that building, and another 150 square feet out of the fitness room, just right-sizing those things as they've seen the plan develop. So it's an ongoing conversation. There's been a lot of moving pieces, but we can definitely prepare a summary for you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Quick thing, what are we looking at for a heating? What type of heating?
So we haven't had the discussion directly on what sort of HVAC system is going to be included in this. It's very common, if the budget allows, that we put radiant heating in the apparatus-based slab. Does a number of things. It's more efficient than trying to pipe heat into those bays. We don't want to heat the entire volume. We just want to keep that heat down at the slab level where the occupants are. It also does a really good job of drying off the apparatus bay floor when you're coming in from McCall's on a day like today, when you're covered in salt and water and ice and things like that. As it melts, it makes the bay floor fairly slippery and dangerous. So that also helps dry that out and dry the equipment out so that you get longer longevity out of your trucks. For the rest of the building, what we'll end up doing through the design process is provide a number of different HVAC options and work with the town facilities department and the fire department to make sure that operationally those systems can be best maintained by the town, while also being as efficient as they can be. So I'm not in a position to say exactly what system we'll be providing with this, but we'll be certainly working with the town, not just the fire department, on making sure that we're giving them the right system for the community and for the department. Most often now, it's more of a heat pump system, whether gas-fired or electric. Heat pumps are sort of the most efficient, cost-effective way to go right now. A lot of these systems are undergoing a change with different refrigerants that are coming online in the next year, so we don't know exactly where those are going to go just yet, but we're continuing to monitor those, and there'll be certainly further discussions down the road. It's a long-winded way of me saying that I don't have an answer.
I just had a quick question about the site plan for the visitors lot with the entry and exit. What are you envisioning for the traffic flow there? I know it's a little, like, are you talking like enter and exit in both of the entrances, or are you talking just kind of a one-way sort of situation?
So there would be, you would be able to egress out onto Route 20, but the primary mode of ingress and egress from the public parking lot is going to be back out to Prospect Street,
Okay.
just because it's safer to get out on the Route 20 through the intersection than pulling out onto the street itself.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. One of the reasons I was asking is that I had kind of a slight concern that I don't really have a good suggestion for about the triage room, where having it around the front there, it does distance it quite a bit from the base. Is there envisioning, bringing the gurney through to the bay, or to bring the ambulance actually around? Because that gets back into the question about the traffic flow of that particular lot.
Sure. So the way that these rooms would be set up, there would be an ambulance stretcher in that room all the time. So when the ambulance comes from the bay, pulls out front, the stretcher that's in the ambulance comes out, the stretcher that the patient is on goes in, and then that stretcher goes in the room. So we're trying to limit the amount of transfer trips that we're, making. So when the patient comes in, they'll be sat on the stretcher, and then that's the stretcher that would go in the ambulance.
And then last question, for the radio room, is this only going to be fire, or is this a consolidation with the police as well? Because I know there was some talk of that.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and actually I read it on one of the Post-its here. Someone had asked a question about dispatch. So originally, going back a little ways, when we were talking about a combined public safety building, that would have included the 911 communication center. And then when the police were removed from the project, there was a short discussion that took place about whether or not it made sense to move the current 911 communication center into the fire station. The thought was that may make sense, providing we were going to go to a regional dispatch center where we would invite other communities to participate and then we would dispatch them. The state right now is encouraging regional dispatch. They're paying for the build-out of these types of facilities. So the original thought was if we put a regional dispatch center in the fire station, we could probably get the state to pay for the entire upgrade to that. In conversations with other police departments, fire departments in the area, and we kind of have the same opinion of it, is there is no appetite for these municipalities to join a regional dispatch center that would be in a police station or a fire station. They want the regional dispatch center to be its own independent building, its own independent agency that essentially, we'll use the word contracted with. We enter into an agreement for them to provide the regional service, but they don't want it in an existing police station and fire station. There are reasons for that. I don't want to dive too deep into that tonight, but so what we learned was that any potential regional partner that we may go to try to join our regional center would not come if it was in the fire station. So that was sort of, the committee debated that. That was approximately 5,000 square feet in the building. Once it was determined that, because again, if it's not a regional center, the state's not going to pay for it. There is an absorbent cost to move the communication center from the police station to the fire station. So any attempt to try to alleviate some room within the police station to try to free up some space, when you run the cost benefit of that, I'm not sure that the benefit outweighs the cost. We're talking millions of dollars in order to move that center from one place to the other. For it to just still be a center that's running Auburn, we felt that the cost benefit wasn't there, so the committee voted to remove that 5,000 square feet. So that's another example, to Mr. Chambers' point, that's another example of square footage that has already been removed from the building. So the dispatch center, as you see here, we have dispatch centers in both the Auburn Street Station and the West Street Station now. They're not full-blown dispatch centers, they don't field 911 calls, but they are radio rooms. So we have radio consoles, telephones, we can dispatch. It's where the report writing happens. So the report room or the radio room that's depicted here, there's 3 or 4 seats in it. That's where the paramedics, the firefighters, that's where they come back. They do their reports, but there is a radio console. That's where the radio communication sort of hub of the building is located in that space.
Thank you.
I just kind of learned something. I guess I've been misunderstood about a lot of things. So Auburn right now has 2 dispatch call centers, West Street and Police Station.
No. So the town currently has one 911 communication center that operates out of the police department on Oxford Street.
So now on this new station, it's going to have a dispatch center. The police is, so where's my
No,
911
it's not,
gonna go?
and again, I don't want to confuse the terminology. It's not a dispatch center. It's what we call a radio room. So in order for us to receive the calls from the communication centers, we have radios in our building. So the buildings are outfitted with radios. That's how we receive communications. It's how we communicate with everybody. So these are small radio rooms. We don't receive 911 calls there. We're not dispatching crews. We can talk to crews for the radio, but it's essentially, it's the radio infrastructure, it's the infrastructure for the station alerting system, which is how we're notified by dispatch, and then that radio room is also where the report writing activity takes place.
All right, now I
So
get
if you go into Auburn Street, if you walk into the Auburn Street Fire Station in the lobby, that door on the left, that's the radio room.
very familiar, yeah.
So that's the room we're talking about in this station.
All right, so when I call 911, it's going to go to the police station?
It goes to the police station.
Police station's going to call you?
Yes.
Then you got to dispatch the truck?
No, the police station dispatches us. So when you dial 911 and you tell them what your emergency is, fire or medical, they dispatch us over the radio, we get in the trucks, and then we're communicating with dispatch. With the dispatchers that we're communicating, saying that we're en route, on arrival, all of that, those are the 911 operators at the police station.
All right,
There's no dispatchers in the fire stations.
okay, now I understand.
Great question. If you go back to the plan with the Veterans Park, as well as the firefighters memorial, are those included in the cost? Like, I don't know how much of that park is needed to be renovated to adapt to this, or is that like, hey, this could be the future and we can remove these costs now, and the firefighters memorial and the Veterans Park can be done at a different time, or it's just cost advantageous to do it all at the same time? Like, what are we doing to plan for the future, but, reduce our cost now?
So there's no plan for the project to do anything at the Veterans Memorial, sort of just constructing that sidewalk in the new parking area there. That's the limit of work to the north of the site. So we aren't touching the Veterans Memorial. There's no anticipation of doing any restoration work or anything like that associated with this project. We would anticipate that the project would be able to accommodate any of the other site amenities that you see on the site, like the firefighters memorial. That would be part of the project, overall project budget. And it would be a very modest cost in terms of the overall project budget. We're talking a very modest amount of money to achieve that. That would have already been captured in the total site costs themselves. So maybe there's a little bit of cost associated with the memorial. That's pretty much the limit of it.
So what we're talking about internally right now is actually moving our monument that is currently at Hillside Cemetery. If you're familiar with where that is, we're actually talking about, the reason that it's at Hillside is because there has never been a place sort of to put it. So the internal conversations right now are moving that monument from Hillside Cemetery to the fire station. So the monument already exists. It would be moving it.
Just a place.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not against it. I'm just, again, thinking the cost is a concern, so what are we doing? And we have the training room in, FF&E, and like, what are we doing to reduce the cost on that? And understanding like what is available for other grants or other sources of funding that don't necessarily have to be included in the project cost. And knowing that there are grants for like that, the dispatch center, which there's no appetite for, but are there other things with, fitness and can we get equipment donated? And, again, are we getting all new furniture and fixture? I mean, I would hate to build this brand new building and have used stuff, but at the same time, I know there's a lot of options for slightly used or reducing costs that way that still meet the needs.
So I guess the way that I can address that question is that grants and donations aren't guaranteed, so we can't plan for them, right? So we need to plan for a project budget that encompasses this as sort of all new. As things get approved through grants and things like that, if we apply for some of those, and there are grants that become available over time, but there's not a lot of them, and typically you need to have project-ready documentation in order for the grant writing process to occur. So it's not like we can go to town meeting and say, we are anticipating $1 million in grants. We won't know that we're going to get those until we start getting bid documents prepared and are going into construction. What would then happen is the total taxpayer wouldn't be on the burden for that entire cost, right? We'd be able to pay down the bond quicker. So
We get $1 million grant, take $1 million out of the project cost that was bonded, pay down the bond, something like that. But in terms of looking for those efficiencies and looking for things that are like, we can reuse some of this stuff, we can certainly have those ongoing conversations, right? If they've recently purchased a new CBA compressor, the thing that fills their air packs, it doesn't make sense to buy a brand new one. Let's just move the old one or the new one that they already bought over. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we'll have ongoing conversations about those as ways to reduce costs and not have to spend money on equipment that doesn't need to be new, because there's relatively new equipment already at the station.
And just to add a little bit to that, as far as the FF&E, and the building's going to be fitted out appropriately, and it's going to be efficient for what we're going to be doing. We're going to look at every aspect associated with buying the furniture, every state procurement that might be out there to find out where the cost effectiveness on purchasing those items would be. We're going to try to get vendors out here to actually bring samples. They'll have their choice, and they're going to bring out, 3 different models and show them what the cost differentials and the longevity of each of those products are. So we're going to buy it right as we move forward.
I just want to address the grant piece is something that comes up often. It's a question that I field almost daily. So currently, as it stands, there are no state or federal grants that exist to even offset the construction of a police station, a fire station, a public safety building. There are currently, this is something I have personally, along with the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, been advocating for many years, is there are currently 13 different versions of a bill at the State House right now to create a public safety building authority similar to the MSBA program for the schools that allowed us to construct this high school and the middle school at a reduced percentage. No program exists like that right now for public safety. I've testified twice before the state Senate in support of this bill. There does not appear to be much of an appetite at the state to create such a program at this time. So, the likelihood of that happening even in the next several years, the sense that we're getting from our legislators is it's probably slim to none at this moment. On the federal side, there's no program that exists, and really I think, we're in a kind of a standby and wait and see what's going to happen on the federal side. There's already been many programs that are cut within the last 30 days on the federal side, so I don't know that there's going to be much of an appetite to put federal money towards this. So any chance for state or federal funding, I think, are going to come by way of earmarks, by working with our local legislators, working with Rep. Frost, working with Senator Moore, working with, Senators Markey and Warren, and specifically asking them to support an earmark in their budget for the town of Southbridge received one for $1 million, and then it was cut in half, and then they got some money back, but they received a federal earmark for $1 million towards their project. We're going to explore all of those avenues. So we will be asking our delegation for an earmark. Again, it's not guaranteed money, but those asks will be made. When it comes to the FF&E, unfortunately, there's really not a lot that could be carried from West Street over. There's really not even a lot in the building. So we've kind of talked about this, internally. That station lacks a lot of things that headquarters has that West Street doesn't. So I think where some of those grant opportunities come in, and even on the state side, the most amount of money that's available in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the town of Auburn based on our population, the most amount of money that we could apply for, which we just over the weekend, I got word that we got this year's grant, was the firefighter safety grant. The most that we're eligible for is $19,000. And that's what we just received this year, that we'll be buying some gear. So those kind of small grants, I'm very hopeful. I would be willing to bet that we will be able to secure some grants to purchase maybe the turnout gear washer extractor, or the dryer, or something like that that can come off the FF&E. But, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of money out there in terms of what's available for grants. But I'm aware of most of what's out there. The USDA has some programs that we'll be, again, working with our delegation to see if we can get some USDA funds. So we know where to target the money. Unfortunately, there's not a lot, but I think all of those is going to come sort of, as Matt said, after the fact as deducts, you know, from the project and say, oh, we got a 20,000 grant here, so we can, you know, trim that off.
I have 2 more questions, Chief Deputy. What's the length of the tower truck?
I think it's around 38 feet.
How far from Prospect Street is that building going to set back? Because we know Auburn Street has a minimum, you know, there's not much room from the front and there's not much room from the back, and that was one of the major questions we've had years ago.
So the minimum design standard for an apparatus bay apron off of a street for any vehicle is 50 feet. And we're meeting that requirement right now, which is more than adequate, the amount of space to take a ladder truck, swing it in and swing it back out.
Well, I'm talking just to park it outside.
Yes, so this is much different than, so I want to say it's 38 feet. What I can tell you is when the front bumper is on Auburn Street, the bucket is still in the station.
Correct.
So that won't be the case here. There's 50 feet, and actually, I think, didn't we push this set, wasn't this set back a little more? This might even be 60 feet off the roadway. So this will be a different situation than Auburn Street, because right now on Auburn Street, we have to pull in the station, and then we have to pull onto Auburn Street in order to back up. This, we're going to be able to pull into the parking lot, make that turn, and be able to back up without sitting on Prospect Street.
Okay, and another question is there going to be a light at the north side of that building so vehicles are not going to be, when the light is red at Route 20 and Prospect, the vehicles will not be right at the light and all the way down?
This intersection?
When that light is red, how far back is there going to be another stoplight not to allow the vehicles to come in there? So if an apparatus has to leave, are they going to have to wait for all the cars to get out in front of the station?
So this situation is somewhat similar to West Street, if you're familiar with the school. Like, just stand in West Street at 7:15, whatever it is in the morning, you know, when the middle school is going and the traffic is backed right up in front.
Yep.
Directly across the street from the fire station on West Street, so if this was the apparatus floor, somewhere right here, there's a pole with what's called an Opticom receiver. So on all of our vehicles, we have a device that's called an Opticom. It's a little strobe light that flashes, and when the sensor picks that up, it triggers the traffic lights at the intersection. It turns the light green, and then it puts them red in all other directions of travel. So much like West Street, even if the traffic was backed up all in front of West Street, when the bay door opens and the emergency lights are on and it triggers that, it turns the light green and it starts to move the traffic towards Southbridge Street, which allows us to get out. Traffic is probably another thing that I'm asked often about in terms of navigating traffic, whatever. Traffic in Auburn is tough. It can be tough. We navigate the traffic on a daily basis. In some respects, I'd rather see the traffic sort of stopped and us navigating around it, or at least flowing in the direction that we're trying to get. It's a little easier to get around. I don't know where we could put this thing that we're not going to have some sort of a traffic issue, but the technology exists. It's technology that we use today that will get traffic moving on Prospect Street as we come out of the station, so it kind of prevents that, you know, bottleneck that's there.
And how far is the entrance, the first entrance to go in for the public from that intersection?
I'm not sure.
The entrance right here?
Yes, how far is that from the intersection?
It's like 150 feet.
It's very similar to where the Chuck's end. It's just like if you picture where the Chuck's entrance is now. It's probably a little more. It's probably like take that driveway and go one over towards Prospect Street. So It's a little further than the existing driveway on Prospect Street now. And the intention, one of the other post-its that I saw was navigating traffic on 20. This road right here, we're not 100% sure what the future of this road is going to be, but we're strongly considering not allowing this as a cut-through, and that this would be for like emergency vehicles only. Potentially, we could come out here and make a right turn only onto 20. You know, we don't want people navigating from 20, you know, trying to turn, you know, it's kind of what happens at Chuck's now, but we want to try to eliminate people crossing, you know, 2 lanes of traffic to come into the parking lot. That's why we want them to be at a controlled light. But if we do allow access onto 20, it might just be like a right-hand turn only out of 20. So again, they're not navigating across 2 lanes of traffic.
Thank you.
Now, did you talk about the potential of a second floor addition above the classroom?
I didn't, no. Yeah, just a couple other things to note on the design that I failed to mention. The one is that training room also doubles as the EOC, so that'll take some pressure off of the police department as well. In addition to that, the floor above it, this area here, there were some comments earlier on about the regional dispatch center as being part of this project, and it was envisioned as such at one point, and that's sort of the area that it had occupied previously on the second floor. What we're actually doing is, rather than that be a traditional roof system, which would be just steel structure, roof membrane, and insulation, we're actually pouring a concrete slab, so we'll have a composite structural deck on that roof, and then the roofing system on top of that, such that in the future, if the fire department needs to expand or needs to grow 20, 25 years down the road, or another agency needs some additional space, that'll be sort of prepped and ready for a second-story addition in the future at a reduced cost as to what it would cost, you know, to build all that new now. So that is one of the flexibilities and future growth components that we've worked into this building. Doesn't really cost you anything additional now, except for a little bit of extra concrete. But it will pay dividends in the future if we ever need to expand the fire station 25, 30 years down the road.
Yeah, I think just highlight, that's a shortcoming of the existing headquarters, is that the apparatus bay was not built for expansion, so you could not build on top of the apparatus bay, because at the time that they built that station, they didn't think, you know, that we want to, you know, pay the money to make it a little stronger to be able to build on it. So that's one of the things that, you know, we're trying to sort of balance between, you know, cost effectiveness and long-term cost effectiveness.
Can that be done if it's, the roof is pitched to the south side, where it's possible for solar panels?
Yeah, it's different roofs. So the pitched roof is this area here. And the area we're talking about is this portion here, which is just over the training room and fitness area. Jeff, if you could point on the rendering to that lower flat roof on the back there.
So this is the area where the kind of future expansion is. This is that big. This side of the line.
So that expansion area is not on this picture here?
Yeah, it is. Right on top of that.
All right, I'm looking at the wrong picture, I was looking at a whole lot.
Yeah, because that's from the other end. It's actually, it's, you can just see it back over here. That's the best.
Okay, thank you.
We're sitting here right at 8 o'clock. Anybody have any last-minute comments or questions before we close this meeting? Yes, ma'am.
Just wondering if there's any plans to widen Prospect Street?
There are not at this time.
Do you anticipate another meeting before town meeting
Yes.
with the drawings and stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, this sort of process can't be one hitter. It needs to have a follow-up so that you can see that your comments have been addressed or responded to as to why they haven't been addressed and what the reasons are. So we want to make sure that we are definitely following up
We're going to have a series of other public meetings to seek input and show the progress. The next of which will be the following building committee meeting, which is February 5th, I believe? February 3rd.
Matt, one of the questions that I have, just because I did see that note about widening Prospect Street. So one of the questions that I have is, I think right now this is programmed for 60 feet back. We own this whole corner now. So even if it was, you know, a portion, is the potential exist for a potential widening? You know, it's a town road, so we wouldn't necessarily need permission from the state. I would envision, I think it's premature to say yes or no whether there will be a widening. What I can say is there will be improvements to the road, very similar to the middle school when they redid West Street and they expanded it even just by like that 10 feet to put the turning lanes in. So I do anticipate, I don't know about a full widening of the road, but I do anticipate some road improvements based on the construction, because we essentially own that whole side of the road. So I think we could, depending on what and again, the next phase of this is, there'll be, not necessarily the traffic, but when the engineers get in to start looking at turning radiuses and all this, I think the potential does exist for some road improvements on Prospect Street, sort of in that way, much like what was done on West Street.
How much will that cut down on the distance from the street to the apparatus?
Well, so that's what I just said. The standard is 50 feet. I think we gave like a 6-foot buffer, so even if we split the difference and we took an additional 5 feet in front of the station, or we did something there, I think there's a little wiggle room there. But Prospect Street, as it stands now, it does meet the requirements of the actual road width, including the sidewalk. So the road is currently built to town standards in terms of what is supposed to be existing for road conditions. Are we going to talk about some of these comments?
No, what we'll do is we'll take, I'm assuming some of them have been sort of discussed in what people have shared. So what we're going to do is we're going to write up a summary of all the comments that we've collected today, along with everything that we've received through the online survey. And again, as a reminder, that's available for another week. And we'll provide to the building committee for them to share with the greater community that summary of comments.
I guess I do have a question. It's almost like we have 3 buildings here, right? So wouldn't it make more sense to put the one on the far left with the one that's at the top? And then, and then just make a second floor for both sides?
So there's an economical reason for not putting program space above an apparatus bay floor. That's a very long structural span. We're talking 90 feet across that. That's big, heavy pieces of structure in order to support a floor above that. We can keep that structure pretty lightweight if we're just supporting a snow load and a roof load above there. And so the increased inefficiency that you get when you start putting support space on top of the bays, right, it increases your cost and structure. It's also going to require that we start putting columns in the middle of the bays. Right now, that's clear span the whole way through, so it's wide open. When you start putting columns in the middle of the bays, as firefighters are responding to an emergency, those things are in the way of them getting to the trucks. You actually end up with a lot of workplace injuries as a result of that.
Well, fair enough. But take the first 2 at the bottom then, and make that all one building. The bays are on the top, correct?
So these are different heights. They're not two different buildings. This is a 2-story piece of the building, and this is a single story.
But wouldn't it make more sense just to build it as one building?
It originally was 1 2-story section of building. That's when we had the regional dispatch center in there. We don't have enough program to support building all that out today, but that's being preserved as future growth space. It's less expensive to not build that and not build all this empty volume that the fire department's not going to use, that they have to maintain and heat and all those things.
Right. I remember from the first building,
there was a lot of concern about growth and space, and as I recall, one of the statements was that other fire stations had built growth, and then the growth still wasn't enough. And, the problem we have with the police station is we built it for, that day's maximum capacity, and it just immediately became too small. And it seems to me that we're doing the exact same thing.
So a couple things on there, and then Chief, I'll let you add in if I missed anything here. This building is designed as a 50-year, it's been programmed out for 50 years. So we didn't just look at what the department has today, but we looked at projections based on call volume over the past 30 or 40 years within the community, the town's population, and the anticipated growth based on that. So you can sort of map out the past 30 or 40 years, project out where that's going to end up. Couple that with the independent study that the fire department had based on their staffing sizes, and put those two things together, and it gives you a pretty good sense on what you need for a building now and into the future. So we've programmed that extra growth into the building itself and added in a few extra spaces that can be added onto in the future. So we're not just building for today, we're building in extra growth capacity and then also other opportunities to expand in the future if we needed a little bit more.
How flexible is the building internally in terms of moving walls or changing office sizes? And
Yeah,
is that a huge thing, or is it, you've got basically an open area and then a shell and?
Pretty much. I mean, it's going to be a steel structure, right? So those will be built fairly nominal with some large spans, and then infilled with light gauge metal studs and drywall in between those structural members. So if an office needs to relocate, if we need to add another bathroom, these sort of things are sort of built in so that we can easily renovate it. It's not that it doesn't require zero work or zero effort or cost, but it's not like you're tearing down a bunch of masonry walls like you would, a masonry structured building that you would have built 40 or 50 years ago. This is a lot more flexible in those terms. And what we can also start identifying with the fire department is sort of dummy walls, we call them. So say that there's a couple of offices next to each other, and maybe down the road we might anticipate the need for a conference room or something like that. We can take a wall and just have it as just studs and just drywall and not put electrical or anything in there, so that in the future, when they do need to expand that room, it's a very cost-effective way to just take that wall down, not have to deal with electrical or plumbing or anything like that, and then create that expansion.
Thanks.
I'm kind of confused. Can you go back to the blueprint of the floor status? Okay, right there. The picture on the right, that's the apparatus up top.
Yep.
We cannot put a second floor on it to put the living quarters up there?
You just can't do it economically. It's gonna increase cost, and it's gonna cause complications with the apparatus bay floor. It's not that it's never done, but it's avoided whenever possible, because the implications of when you do something like that is a detriment to the fire department's operations, and it increases the cost of the project.
What are we looking at for an increase? Because you're talking a lot of wasted space that the firefighters could use for future. You could put the captain's offices, the lieutenant's offices. I thought that's what you were talking about earlier.
No, the area that we're talking about for future expansion that they can add on to is right here.
Okay.
Above the training room and above the fitness room.
Now, what's the square footage of the apparatus floor? It's like
9,800 square feet.
right.
something
So
like that.
what you got to take into consideration is 9,800 square feet. That's a lot of square footage when you're talking about offices and things like that. So from an economical standpoint, you could do that much cheaper in the configuration that we've done it here by going up a second story instead of doing something over an additional 9,800. I mean, 9,800 square feet, that's that's 1/3 of the total building size.
Why not build it now for the future? And you're talking 50 years. Let's look towards 75 years.
But,
We have expansion with the brewery.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
We have expansion with brewery Charrette's gonna stay operating, and you're only gonna, now that becomes a secondary station, staffed like West Street is right now.
Right.
It's gonna have excess space right now that can be filled in the future.
Yeah, this is that delicate balance of, the wants, the needs. This is that delicate balance and that tough decision of, we want to make sure that we're building into the future. We want to make sure we're doing that. But this is 5,000 square feet of potential future space. So I think in my mind and in everybody's minds, 5,000 square feet is a lot of square footage for a down the road kind of thing. I don't think we need 9,200 square feet, but again, the cost implications to do the 9,200 square feet above the apparatus floor versus doing it above this piece, it's considerable. So I think this building does have future growth. Kind of to follow up on Steve's point. So one thing that sometimes gets lost is that we're still going to be operating 2 stations. Headquarters is going to move from Auburn Street to the Prospect Street location, and then Auburn Street will be our Station 2. So there is a total of 13 bunk rooms proposed in this new headquarters. On top of the 7 that we have on Auburn Street, that's a total of 20 bunk rooms. Currently today, we have 11 members on staff. So if this project goes forward, we have almost the ability to double our staff and still have adequate space for them. The other thing is, and again, I've heard a couple times tonight, why don't we go with 6 bays or whatever? There's all cost implications to that, and we're trying to keep the cost of this as low as possible, but still being responsible. We're building a station that currently has all of these bays full. So there is really no room for growth in terms of a future truck here. But you got to remember that includes some of the equipment that's coming from Auburn Street that's going to move to this location, and in turn, we're going to have 2 open bays on Auburn Street. So we still have the ability to grow by a truck or something like that. But one of the things that I like to mention people is the fire department is never going to need to double the size of its fleet. We have enough trucks. I see room for, in the next 20 years, probably the growth of a piece of equipment, which we'll be able to accommodate in Auburn Street. But what we need is firefighters in the trucks. We don't need more trucks, you need firefighters. So when you're looking at, building a facility, we're not looking to be able to double the size of our fleet. That's not needed. So we have, based on what's moving out of Auburn Street coming over here, we feel we have enough bay space. And we feel that by having the 13 rooms, total 20, we could potentially almost double our staff, and we're still within that space. So we feel that the square footage of this building, what the committee has reduced in terms of total square footage, we're comfortable with this layout. Could it be bigger? Sure. I mean, I think you run that much like, the police station's been mentioned a couple of times. Providing this building doesn't get cut drastically by a few thousand, square feet because of cost, I think everybody feels comfortable that this is a building that is going to suit us well moving into the future. If this was to be reduced by a few thousand square feet, I think now we're running, that potential risk that it's becoming too small. But the fact that we're going to be running, 2 fire stations, that is a consideration when we're talking about how this one is sized, and we feel this one is sized appropriately.
So, Chief, I'd just like to add, one of the things that I hear, and I've heard it tonight, is the cost to the taxpayer. Those suggestions are great, and I can tell you categorically, the department and the designer, along with us, have been looking at every efficiency to try to figure out what's the best program for the next 50 years. The apparatus addition, and I was just doing some quick math in my head based on some of the requests that you had. It's well north of $10 million to add space above that apparatus. And we're talking about trying to reduce the cost of this building by square footage so that it's affordable to the taxpayers. We're exhausting every issue to make sure that we're building this building efficiency with forecasting what programs needed for the next 50 years. What the chief and their department has done to try to ensure that the program is met with this building and building in flexibility with the second station is essential to the growth of the city and town.
So without doing the growth to the second floor above the apparatus, could it be prepped? So in 15 years, 20 years down the road, they say, hey, we need to go up. Can this be prepped to do that in that time?
Not at a cost, not at a estimated cost that would be set to this project economically.
At what cost would it be though?
Tell you what, it's a good question. I understand where you're coming from. So let's ask our estimator.
Let's look at the police station, like the other gentleman said. It was outdated within a year.
So let's ask our estimator, when we send the design plans for estimating, to give us a number of what the increase in cost would be to prepare that roof as a floor instead. And then we can come back and give you a specific answer. I think it's a fair way to answer it, so you understand exactly what the implication is.
I just don't want to see this built and have a great thing, and then in 25 years go, oh crap.
No, I hear you.
So I appreciate the willingness to do that. I think we've heard that this is already going to meet or exceed the needs for 50-plus years. And again, if building over the bay is, the reason that keeps coming up is because we can't currently do it. But you have growth potential in this layout. And there's never been a design where everything is above the bay and we just have one square or rectangular building. So this, and the chief has said 5,000 square feet for growth, and we're already going to have double the capacity in this layout. I don't think we need more space. I think it's nice to have for the future, and I think the building committee debated this quite a bit, and I appreciate the work that you guys did on that, because again, we could build that other second 5,000 square feet, but we don't need that, and we're not going to need that for the next 25 to 50 years, even if we double in size. Right, and the community can't double in size, so I don't see the need for our support services to double in size. So I don't know if, again, cost would be nice to know that, but I don't think that's something that we should really entertain.
It was a fair point too to say, well, we're building out the future growth of 5,000 square feet on the site here. Why don't we build it out today? And it would be cheaper to build it out today than it would be 25 years ago, right? Construction costs go up every month and every year, and they do so at a rate faster than the cost of inflation, almost for the past 120 years without a break. But when you do build that space out that may not ever need to be expanded into by the fire department, you will be maintaining for the life of the building that space, and you will be heating for the life of the building that space. So when you look at the life cycle cost of shelling out a component of the building for a might have in the future, it doesn't make economical sense, and that was reviewed with the building committee this fall and over the winter.
I just have a question. The utility rooms that are off the bay. Sorry. The spaces that are at the bottom of the bay.
Yep.
That have all sort of the utility and the gear and all the other stuff. As this building gets more full, are those most likely to be the things that are going to be the pressure point? And can you use, I forgot what you said was at the top of the bay, was that maintenance?
So I can go through a couple of the spaces in more detail, and I will just add that these, like other spaces in the building, have been built with future growth in mind. So working our way from, it's a very sticky stand. Working our way from over here, and again, I understand it's hard to see, and these are blurry, and you're far away. So our first space here is our turnout gear room. This is the gear that the firefighters wear when they're responding to a call. These are based on a locker count. Each officer or each firefighter has a locker. This is based on the total future anticipated membership for the department over the next 50 years, plus room for additional growth, so that if they do for some reason need to add 10, 15 more firefighters, it has the space to accommodate it. This decon area is more robust than some smaller fire stations. It has all the NFPA requirements that they'll have for decontaminating when they come here. This isn't going to need to get expanded unless there's some hot new thing in firefighter decontamination that comes out that requires a new space, and that's just not something we can anticipate. But this also has some additional space built into it so that we can accommodate anything that does happen in the future. The next room here is the EMS supply storage room. So this is where they're restocking the ambulance as it's coming back from a call. This is sized based on the number of ambulances that they operate out of this facility, and also has a little bit of extra growth built into it as well. So we wouldn't anticipate this growing any more than it already is. And then the next room over here is that transition zone off of the radio room for mutual aid. So there's no real changes that we would see going on there. To the north of the plan, we've got some general storage. So this is storage of gear and equipment and things like that support the firefighters when they're responding to a call. We also have the SCBA room, so all their breathing apparatuses and air tanks. This is where they decontaminate them, fill the air packs, and then store them. So this is sized based on department, the size of the turnout gear room and the number of firefighters that the department is also going to have. So again, these are all sort of sized similarly based on the number of firefighters that the department is going to have on staff. And then we have some smaller storage rooms and a workroom, and the workroom is for the mechanics bay. That's got room for a tool crib and part storage and things like that. We've got additional storage here, room on the walls and things like that for tires and equipment and parts and stuff like that. And then we've got this whole mezzanine up above that is unprogrammed space. That's bonus space that they can use for overflow storage over time as they bring in bigger pieces of equipment, need to bring in some training pieces and things like that. So we're really covering all bases when it comes to the firematic component of the building.
So one thing that I just want to point out is the department has a mechanic. So our fleet is maintained inside the fire stations. Right now, the mechanic works out of West Street. So these 4 bays here is the emergency response program, and then this bay, this 5th bay, up here is the designated mechanics bay. So in some fire stations, like this firematic stuff, sometimes like is housed on this wall. We put the firematic space here as a separation between the emergency response area and the mechanic, because right now, it was happening today, like right now, the mechanic is fixing a truck 6 feet away from an emergency response vehicle, that's trying to get out the door. So that's why we created that separation. So just so when you saw the mechanics bay, that's something that's currently going on now. We have a mechanic in-house that basically does the work out of our West Street station now.
Chief, it might be worth it also mentioning that the current bay that they're using is not big enough to work on the tower, right?
Yeah, correct. So right now, the ladder truck, if it needs to be worked on, we have to reserve space at the DPW for the mechanic to be able to work on it there. So this mechanics bay is double deep. So the tower truck would be able to be worked on and lifted there. The other thing too, a couple of questions that I got regarding the mechanics bay. There's no pits or anything. It's not like a Jiffy Lube where there's an underneath or whatever. There's no floor-mounted jacks or anything like that. All of the jacks that we have, even at the fleet at the DPW, they're all mobile. So they're on wheels. They're mobile jacks. So we can actually lift fire apparatus off the ground, but there's no floor-mounted jack. So the jacks are kind of wheeled off when not needed into a space that doesn't hamper movement around the floor.
So I think with that, I think we can call this an evening. Got a lot of phenomenal feedback from everybody, some really great questions. I'm sure we've got some good feedback online as well. So like I said, we'll take all these Post-it notes, we'll take all your feedback, we'll take everything that we receive online over the next week, we'll compile it into a report that the building committee can review and share, and we'll be looking to have some more of these coming into the future as we prepare for town meeting. So I really do appreciate everybody's feedback and your participation in tonight's event.
This has been invaluable to the committee, to the fire department, and to the project and our process. So thank you all very much, and it's a cold one out there, so.
Yeah. Again, thank you. For those who don't know, if you haven't seen it, the Fire Station Building Committee does have a webpage. You can find that from the town's website. Just go under committees, and there's a bunch of frequently asked questions on that page. So thank you very much.
Thank you all, I think you did a good job.